answers. It's a blessing just to see you. We have prayed so much for you as a church in the journey and all the work that Daryl and Kingston and many others were doing, all the work that people put into that. And we praise God for his supply and now the answers. So we're praying for you now as you continue just seeing his blessing happen. And we're delighted for you. I'm excited too for the privilege of getting to talk about this topic. And I'll talk a little bit more tomorrow, or actually maybe Sunday, about what God's doing in Edmonton. So that's another piece of things. But I want to use the time really well tonight, and I want to go straight towards talking about family. I think this is one of those topics that the relevance maybe, I'm hiding behind the screen, I'm feeling shy. No, there we go. I think the relevance maybe is automatic and obvious. I don't know that I have to make the case for why family is a worthy study or why it should be relevant for our discussion, but I will just set up for it a little bit, and I'll set up for it like this. We had two different couples that we were counseling for marriage counseling around the same time. And both of them told us the same story, that when they said to their coworkers, we're getting married, they were, I think, in there. One of them was, I think, they were both 18. And the other couple was a little bit older, maybe around 23, 24. And both of them, the coworkers said to them, getting married when you're 18, like, why would you do that and lock yourself down? Go out and live life a little bit and enjoy yourself first. And same with the people that were in 23, 24, mid-20s, same kind of comment. Really, you want to lock yourself down like that? I mean, you haven't even really had that much fun yet. So go out and have some freedom first. Okay. Not an uncommon refrain. And you look at some statistics and you'll see marriage ages are going up on average. There are different reasons for that. Some of that is education related, things like that. But it's not a good trend. And I think that the pressing question for this, just on marriage and family in general, is a basic value proposition question. By value proposition, what I mean is, if at some point, let's say you were into Starbucks and you really liked a certain drink, and then you're watching those prices go, and it's like $4. Okay, I'll pay $4 for the drink. I mean, it kind of stings, but okay, it's a good drink. And then you watch it go to $5 and $6, and now it's $7, and at some point you tap out. You're like, $7 is just too much for a drink. I'm out. Okay. It's a value proposition question. And what's going on in people's heads right now with marriage and family, whether that's entering into marriage or whether that's choosing to stay in marriage, whether that's choosing to stay coordinated or integrated into a family, married or not, it could be a son or a daughter. Am I going to continue to honor my parents? Am I going to continue to engage? People's choice with family is basically a value proposition question. And the analysis they're running is are the benefits worthy of the trouble? Are the benefits worthy of the trouble? And at some point, if you just do a straight utilitarian, I add up and I do the math, and if it's a lot of work and you're tired of it, we call that divorce, or we call that walking away. It could be, again, not just marriage equations, but I'm thinking of families that we know and love where one of the children at some point just said, I'm done with my parents. Haven't talked to them for 10 years. Another form of the same thing. It's kind of a child-parent divorce. And at some point somebody said, wasn't worth the trouble, I'm out. It's a value proposition question. That's where I'm starting here. An initial discussion for us goes, if I ran a value proposition analysis on family, why family? Why do it? Okay, now I'll chase this a little bit more tomorrow. And a big idea we'll do in the second session, the second time together tomorrow, a big idea there would go, that these relationships are a bundle of different things. What I mean by that is, if we say marriage, there are maybe 5, 6, 8 different components that God has actually built into this state. And so marriage brings those multiple components, and they're designed to go together. They're designed to hang together. I'm not going down that direction tonight, but I will just set it up a little bit to say, part of the thing that people do with this value analysis is they'll say, all right, I want benefit 1, benefit 3, and benefit 7, but I don't want responsibility 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, any of them actually. So I'd like to drop the responsibilities and I'd like to cherry pick a la carte certain benefits. And or they'll do this question, why family, and the basic analysis comes down to what I said a minute ago, which is, okay, if it's not giving me greater benefits and rewards than the investment I'm making into it, why do it on my own? And I want to poke at that tonight. I want to poke at that in a couple of different ways in order to get us to my big idea for tonight. The idea that why family, answer, it's not about you. That's kind of my big idea. It's not about you. It's the benefits are greater than the investment analysis is fundamentally and absolutely, thoroughly, completely, essentially flawed. It's not about you. It's not even about the family having a nice, happy, lovely time. There's a bigger vision going on here. There's a grander thing. And it's a grander vision or something transcendent that only a Christian framework can offer. Something more fundamental. But just to set this up a little bit, I'm still kind of poking at things, so I'll try this image out. So this is an image of a kibbutz. And this would be in the 1920s, running up through the 1980s or so, when different refugees are coming to Palestine. So it's 48 is when the modern state of Israel gets set up. But even before that, 20, 30 years before that, people were already coming in and setting up these settlements. Not an easy life, not an easy survival. Okay, so they're carving life and health and sustenance out of a desert. And just to make it through, these are scrappy people. They set up these kind of communes and hardworking, getting out there, slaving in the heat, irrigation systems, scrappy, hardworking people. And this was kind of the beginnings of what would eventually become the modern state of Israel. Now, so far, the story's positive. Where it gets kind of awkward or negative, one of the strategies they used, if you're that level of sustenance farming, survival, they said, well, every adult needs to be able to work. So the system they used was, we'll have all the kids be raised by a certain group of designated nanny people. And they'll be the educators, they'll be the main ones that'll take care of it. And we can go ahead and further economize this out. We'll have a kid's house and we'll have parents' houses. And so the kids will sleep in the parents' house, in the kids' house, and the nanny will take care of them. And in the evenings, an hour or two, the parents can come over and see their kids. But the core, child rearing, training, teaching, everything, the core training is done by professionals. And, sounds great, right? I mean, if you can get somebody that they're trained in child development, and they do this full time, and they've got the resources, and it's you know what, I don't need to be an accountant. I can hire an accountant if I need that. I don't need to be a plumber. I hire a plumber if I need that. And plumbers are better at plumbing than I am, and accountants are better at accounting than I am. And so, chances are, aren't there probably some really high-end skills about child development and education that we could, if we would consolidate all our resources and we send all our kids there, and then somebody who really knows how to train them well, I mean, it seems like it'd be like some efficiencies or something. Hire a professional after all. Okay, I mean, you already know that I'm not advocating that. But what I'm putting this out here as a question. I mean, like, really, from a biblical standpoint, or I should say biblical, from a practical standpoint, like just logistics, getting her done. Like, yeah, okay. This has been tried off and on a handful of different times through human societies. Well, you know, maybe if we all work together, then somebody will educate our kids better than any of us can individually. And I picked this example because there are some of them that are like really awful and like, you know, make your hair stand on end. These guys are fairly responsible, hardworking, agricultural, just gritty people. And this was the solution they came up with. So, what do you think? I'm poking it just to ask if there was like a better way to rear and train and prepare humans. Why not? What do you think? Give me some thoughts. I mean, why is it necessary for us to do it the way that I think everybody that I know in this room is doing it? Why have the framework of a husband, a wife? Let me start with there. Is marriage just a cultural invention? And why have a husband and a wife, singular, one, male, female? I don't know if you know any societies that are questioning those things. And then children that they raise. Why is there a reason or a framework? How would you analyze somebody who says, like, this sounds efficient, this will work just as well? What thoughts occur to you? How would you react to somebody?
From a Christian standpoint, the whole relationship between father and son.
Still green, so it is working fine. Okay, it's a problem with that mic. Sometimes it'll drop off and it'll come back. Okay, so we're fine. Yeah, you
Awesome.
can keep it here.
Okay, so you pick up that's a really
if it
rich
goes
idea,
red,
isn't it?
then that
An
means it's
initial idea right here. I made the argument earlier, I'm going to try to root in something transcendent, bigger than, you know, because part of the answer can be like, oh, I don't think it'll work as well. And it's like, okay, well, we can have that debate. I go, I don't think it'll work, our way is better. And they'll be like, we think our way is better. Like, you're not going to get anywhere with that. Okay, so if it's just my way works better than your way, okay, I mean, anyway, we could have a discussion. I like what you're doing. He's going more transcendent. We worship a God, God the Father, and this is His word. These are His words, not ours. There's some stuff in here that's beyond our. It's not a perfect analogy or something. I mean, it's not. You know, God the Father does not relate to Jesus the way that I relate to Jaron and Zachary. But all the same, God chose these words, Father and Son. There's something that's being pictured. It's deep and eternal. The counsels of the Trinity in ages past. Something's linked in there really big. Excellent comment. Others? Please.
If there is no God, then like a certain president said, you're punished with a baby. So it's an impedance to survival or entertainment for that matter. Why would there be any associations in anything higher?
Yeah, awesome. That's really that's really great. Do we view a baby as the sometimes unwanted, unexpected, uncontrollable result of having sex? Or do we view that as a life that we rejoice in? No. Well, probably one of the differences would be, have you already built a structure in the relationship between that man and that woman before they ever had the physical relationship? It's going to make a huge difference in how they view the results of what they did. Yeah, excellent. Okay, good. Other thoughts?
If you go back to creation, you know, it's not good that man should be alone, and God created a solution.
Excellent. That's one of the key passages I want to go to, especially tomorrow. But set your foundation for marriage, set your foundation for family, set your foundation for children. It's all there. Genesis 1 to 2. And Genesis 3, how it all got corrupted, how it went awry. Okay, excellent. Anybody else want to toss a thought in here? Zachary?
The idea of the church as a body, a family.
Ooh, great. Okay, you get this language sometimes where you say brother so-and-so, sister so-and-so. And it starts to happen, truthfully what happens here is it becomes cultural. So just within church culture, you grow up in the church, you spend enough time in churchy places, then you just kind of get used to saying it that way. And eventually I think you lose what's going on because it's just like, oh, this is churchy talk. Okay. The rootedness for that, when you go back to Scripture, is the New Testament talks about us as family. And so we treat one another as brothers and sisters. And Paul gives instructions, I think it's to Titus. Treat the older men as fathers. Treat one another like, so fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters. Okay? And the kind of care and concern that one would have for that. That it's right, an interaction I might have at the Starbucks. That's just a passing interaction. I still want to honor the person because they're made in the image of God, but there's no long-term dedication to seeking that person's good in an ongoing way. Like I'll witness to them, and if they'll talk, I'll try to build a relationship. We'll try to go there. But there's not ongoing, like I'm committed to you, and I must seek your good. And so when Scripture uses family language in the church, God's setting us up for something about the way we relate. There's a rich thread there. Good thought. Any others that want to put something in here? Okay, if you've got something, raise your hand and you interrupt me. I'm going to chase down, well, first, before I even go there, I'm going to chase down a couple of negatives. Okay, here are negative possible answers people will put out there for family. This is stuff you'll hear in the secondhand smoke that is people's thoughts about family. Family exists to this is if you do a full secular evolutionary framework, materialist framework. Family exists to maximize our evolutionary potential. Because if we just had offspring, but it wasn't then in the framework of like two adults working together to promote the survival of that offspring, then there would be less chance of the offspring actually succeeding. And if the offspring doesn't succeed, then there's less chance of them being able to push along our genes. And so basically, a marriage is a social contract that myself and my spouse are saying, if we work together, higher chance of my genes getting to the next generation, I want that, and you want your genes too? Okay, so we'll make a contract. And we'll actually see these children through so that they'll do better in an evolutionary way. Okay, I would just say about that kind of framework, any of these pathways end up making the whole way you view life brutish and sad. I mean, you can get there with a worldview if you want, but what we've just turned something rich like relationship, lifelong, it just turns into, I wanted my genes in the next generation, and so did you. That's brutish. You've taken all the goodness of human experience and stripped it out and messed it up. Basically, the result of that then is any relationship between spouses is a lot of softness in the head. They don't actually love each other. They just got a bargain. Like, we don't care about each other. We're just trying to push our genes into the next generation. Cool. Another negative, marriage as oppression. So, thank you, sir. Hey, that'll make a difference on resting arms. Thank you. I'm going to mute this so you don't listen to it while I'm putting it on. That's never fun. It's become recent. This is because of this is post-sexual revolution. But the idea, once you put like a feminist framework on things, marriage is patriarchalism. Marriage is the way that men lock down women, or that women control men. And so it's bondage and exists for economic and political reasons. It's a power play. It's a control thing. That's what was going on underneath the hood when these people in the workplace said to my friends, oh, go have your fun first. It's marriage as bondage, marriage as limiter, versus marriage as a framework that brings flourishing and opportunity. Marriage, how about this would be maybe, and this creeps into our heads. How marriage exists for our enjoyment. Marriage or family, I need to broaden it out, exists for our enjoyment. It's a safe place where we can have commitment and love. Okay, yeah, you don't want to be lonely, do you? You don't want to be all by yourself. And so you want to have the joys of being able to walk through life with another person and share the ups and the downs. And you want to be able to see children come from both of you that you share together and you love and you're behind them, and then you see them grow and you see them flourish. See, that all sounds like, oh, well, that's nice. Now we've moved back into bunny rabbits and butterflies. Like, that's nice. It is nice. And it's a lot better than some of the darker frameworks I just gave. Okay, do you see the problem underneath it, though? Marriage and family exists. It gives me a joyful, safe place where we experience our full human potential for commitment and love and joy and flourishing. What's underneath it that's still a little off? Yes?
Once it quits giving you that, you quit.
Yes. How about it? What if you commit to a person and it turns out not to be a good time? Right? You can do that writ small or writ large, right? I mean, every marriage has like seasons where it's like, ooh, this is worky. And then you could have it writ large though, where you could really have, how about this? You married a person in good faith, and they turned out to be a hard person. Okay, at that point, what's your underlying commitment to it? What do you do? Right? And if the framework goes, I entered this contract because I felt like it would make me happy, then if after 10 years, 15, 20 years, and it's not a happy marriage, I'm out. Okay? Is that an allowable framework? See, and I think the starting point underneath it goes, if marriage exists for my safety, commitment, love, experience, or you can enter into a marriage, I want to get married because I want to have kids. Maybe the kids don't happen. Are you still committed to it? Or you were in it and you had the kids grew up and it was a great time and the kids moved out and now it's just the two of you looking at each other. It's like, oh, I remember you. You weren't great before. Now you are. And it's just me and you now. And I'm not having fun. Commitment. Something deeper underneath here, rooted, than just, is it for my enjoyment? Anything else you would add to that? I mean, the idea of family exists as a safe place where I have commitment and love. Anything else you would put in there? I am the nemesis of microphones. I eat microphones for lunch. Put in my answer long enough and it won't work. What else fits you? I think there are other frameworks you can give about the brokenness of that particular. I think
Self-centered.
it's self-centered. Okay, in philosophy, the name for it would be utilitarian. And the utilitarian framework again goes, if I go to Starbucks and I get enough value for the drink, I'll go back. Okay, but underneath it, the question goes, was I getting my joy for the price I paid? And at the end of that, that's a me question. It's all about me. It's about my enjoyment. Okay. How could I mean, if you process this out for a second, thinking about marriage for a little bit, can you see that it's not going to work well if you enter into a marriage, or if you enter into a relationship with a parent or with a child, and entering into that relationship, your starting point is, it's about me. Like, how can that possibly go well? This is about me, and I want this to go well for me. Okay? You can see where you turn this thing upside down. A whole relationship that only works when you forget about you and pour into the other person for a full unselfish reason, altruism. You do it for their good, whether you get results or bad. That's the only way it's going to work properly. See how long it takes me to just this. Thank you. And so you started into this, and the very beginning was, well, it's about me, and I'll play at love so that I can get what I want. So I take those all as negatives. What I'm going to put instead, I'm going to give 4 different suggestions for what I think are more theologically rooted ideas for how we think about marriage. And I'm going to, the way these will go down, There is an order to them, I think, moving gradually down to the most ultimate. So I'll start with this. How about a concept that I think is really helpful as we think about family? The concept of mutual dependence. I grew up in South Carolina, and so the first 30 years of my life were in the U.S. Now live in North America, Canada. 8 years in between, we lived in the Philippines. Okay, one of the big differences between those, well, I'll pause there for a second. How would you, if you were going to describe North American culture with a word, what kind of words hit your mind? Just try that out. What words do you think describe North American culture? It's like core values. North American culture has high value, like what we really, I will get upset if you start to endanger my abundance, nice, excellent. Freedom, excellent. Others? Independence, great. As part of their freedom and independence, kind of like two bits of the same thing. Strong independent idea. Okay, we live in the West, in Edmonton, we live in the western side of things. Yeah, self-sufficiency. Like you put it kind of that way. Like I don't want to depend on nobody else. I take care of me. Kind of that kind of feel. Okay. Well, it's a cultural value. I grew up in it. It's we all breathe that air. Okay. Philippines, strong collective culture. Very much a notion of we're in a network. And so how about this? Just a little bit of a challenge. All of us, because we're on the far extreme over here, Philippines, they might have to work a little bit more in the independent side of things at times, I don't know. All of us probably might have to rebalance a little bit the other direction. And the idea goes, I don't want to depend on nobody else, I'll take care of myself. Okay, pause for a second. None of us can possibly take care of ourselves. None of us can. Right? We're eating cookies. None of us have any idea where the ingredients for those cookies came from. None of us have any capability of getting the lights on. None of us have any capability of delivering clean water. Right? We can't take care of ourselves. If the trucks stop rolling into Richmond, we're toast in like 2 months or something. Okay? We have to have it. We're dependent. And the concept of mutual dependence goes that if I put that into terms of a family, I think there's some richness in here. There were people already working and existing before I ever existed. And if this is done properly in the framework of a family, there were people already working to prepare a home for me before I ever existed. We all recognize people get this out of order sometimes. They have babies and then decide to set up a home. But done properly, the biblical model goes, you marry, you build your relationship, and then add children to it. Okay? And if in your life or your history, whether your own birth or even in your own history, if you had children and that happened before the marriage happened, okay, there. You work through that. God grants grace and you work through those things, right? You seek ways, I love this. Our God is a God who takes messy things and turns them into beautiful things. Right? That's exhibit A right here. So you take a messy thing or an imperfect thing and you seek to live it out righteously before God. But in the framework as God made it, the goal is that there were people already working to prepare a home for me before I was there. Now that's really rich because it's the reminder that I'm not the beginning and the end of anything. There were people there already, and there will be people there long after I'm gone. God grants you children, you may not. But you would have people in your life that would continue on, and I'll be forgotten. All of us will be forgotten. Take it a little further. I'm not self-sufficient. I'm not made to exist or flourish in isolation. I can't take care of myself. And let's put that out in terms of lifespan. So I'm going to divide this out. I take lifespan, and I'm just going to divide it across like this part of life, care for others, this part dependent on others. Okay, and you just do a lifespan of a human. Okay, and there's an arc to the human frame. There was a period of my life where I couldn't keep myself clean. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't survive, right? So if it's me on my own, I'm dead. And then there's an extended period across my life where I can take care of myself, but more than likely, I'm headed back eventually to being dependent on other people to make it. Like there will be a period I really won't be able to come up with enough resources to feed myself and keep myself going. Okay. This period in the middle where I can contribute is my opportunity to help people on those two extremes, and a lot of people otherwise. And a decent, reasonable goal about this part of life, or for that part of life, is to say, I'd like to live in such a way that I can contribute more than I deduct. And it's not like loving God and loving neighbor is more than that, but loving neighbor is at least part of that. It's like I would like to be a decent goal is I would like to contribute more to the quote unquote system, to people, to life, to survival, to this church, to this family, to the people that you are responsible for. I would like to contribute more to that than I subtract. Same thing. Keep on going back. Extend that all the way down to the micro level. I would like individually to contribute more to my marriage than I expect from it. I would like to contribute more to my kids than they contribute back to me in terms of joy. Like, be a net giver. That's a reasonable and right way to view life, because love your neighbor as yourself. Biblical frameworks like that. And let me put that into biblical support. And biblical support for the idea would be God gave us life. We did not make ourselves. When we have the language that God calls himself our Father, or if you pray, Father, thank you for this. Father, thank you for this food. When you pray, Father, the Father language in Christianity, there are multiple meanings in that. But one of the meanings is I'm affirming that I am not the source of my life. So Christianity has at its base a repudiation, a denial of self-sufficiency. I am fundamentally not self-sufficient. I just start out, I'm not self-sufficient. I did not make myself, I did not give myself life. I couldn't even keep myself alive for the first couple of years of my life. When God created the first two people, he told them to go out, be fruitful, to multiply, and that involved leaving father and mother, that involved cleaving envy to your wife. Part of what fulfilling that means then is that God gave humanity a task, like you just put that, husband, wife, leave father and mother, the fabric of family. And that fabric of family is this notion, mutual dependence. We take care of one another. Okay, an idea here goes, I'm not made to exist in isolation. I do better when I work together with other humans towards something bigger than myself. The ideal human is not the dude the cowboy on a horse out in the middle of nowhere, and he doesn't need anybody. That guy's a loser. The guy who has no relationships and he's just out there and he needs nobody and he relates to nobody, he's failing. Okay? Because God gave us a task that involves people. I mean, I put it, here's a straight shot at it. When he says, go out and preach the gospel to every creature, when he says, make disciples of every nation, that, especially the Christian mandate, it mandates that I cannot just be insular. Right? The Great Commission says, I cannot just be to myself. The Great Commission says, I must work at building relationships that go outside of my natural confines. Like, here's what I'm kind of comfortable with this much and no more. Okay? The Great Commission says, yeah, that's fine. That's what Joel's comfortable with. Yeah. Let's go ahead and expand that. Break that open. Here's what you're comfortable with, Joel. You got to do more. More than you're comfortable with. Because the Great Commission says, go out and make disciples. And it's relational. So a mutual dependence idea goes that within the context of a family, we're not standing alone. We're made to depend upon one another. And I'll come back to that a little bit in terms of applications, but I would just say an initial application within our families and working in our relationships, expressing humility. Like, hey, I need the people around. I need the 5 people that God put into my family. I need them. I need them for accountability. I need them for proper flourishing and functioning. And I need to pour into them. And I need to do that. And in humility and a self-sacrifice and a love to do that. Don't feel put out if pouring into them, you find that it's a lot of work. Don't feel put out if you discover that marriage is hard. Yeah, right. Mutual dependence, working together, and making real sacrifices. Okay, how about a second? And a second notion would be committed responsibility. Okay, this sort of builds a little bit on what I did a bit ago. If I'm kind of talking here, I'd say the idea of like I'm tempted. I grew up in South Carolina. The temptation to be like, okay, so I'm me, and now I got to figure out me, and I got to figure out what I want or what I want to do. So I got to figure out me. Versus a framework that would view the world as when I entered the world, or when I was born, and when I became part of the gaming community, I was already born into certain structures and frameworks and networks of things, and I had nothing to do with those networks. And some of those things were already just chosen for me. Okay, so I'll start out with it at an extreme. We're talking about the gender stuff. Part of what's happening with the gender stuff is, okay, I get born and then I've got to radically decide who I am and build up me, and on every level of personhood, right? So if I've got to decide, like, you know, well, you can hear this, I remember this in a song, you know, and I can be anything I want to be. It was a phrase in a song. I can be anything I want to be. So you take that out radically, and that individualism goes, I can be anything I want to be. I can be a woman, if I decided. Okay. So we start out with this radical, like, I can remake myself. Versus a Christian framework that says, when I got born, God already assigned me, you're going to be a man, period. And I had no say. Like, I had zero say. I felt like, can we discuss this or negotiate? Like, I'd like to talk about, no, you're a man. Like, that's just what it is. But I like, who cares? You're a man. Okay. I had no choice. Okay, it was dictated to me. See, but it doesn't just stop with gender. So I was born with the appearance I have. I was born with like the height that God was going to give me. I was born with the voice that God was giving. I was born with, how about this? The particular relationships that God gave me. And so that means that those people were people that God assigned. Because I had no agency with the choice of who I was going to be born to. Zero. I had as much agency with the choice of the people I was going to be born to as I did whether I was going to be male or female. And zero choice on that. God gave and God said, this is who your people are going to be. Okay. And the more you ponder this out, the more you recognize that like an overwhelmingly huge percentage of our relationships are in fact just given to us. We don't choose them. Okay? If I think of my nuclear family, actually I can go beyond. The only person that I chose anywhere in my nuclear family and beyond, I chose exactly one person that I'm related to. Only one. It was a great choice. I chose a good choice. That was the one time I had a choice. The rest of the time, God just gave it to me. Okay. And in that then, the dictation from God said, Jeremy, Zachary, Caroline, and Joy are going to be my descendants. I had no say. They had no say. Okay, now, in that then, you can rail against the reality, or you can accept the reality as from the hand of the sovereign God. Even in, I said I had the one choice. Okay, so I have one person that I have ever decided to be related to. Even there, I don't have really all the choices and control I want about how that works. Right? I married this person 18 years ago. 17 years ago. It's 18 in 23 days. I married this person 17 years ago. And I'm married right over there. I didn't know what she would become, and she didn't know what I would become. And I don't have a lot of choice in that. So, next year, one of us could find out that we could contract a terrible disease that's going to debilitate us for the rest of our days. That means the other person cares for that person across those years. We have no control of that. And all that is, again, this expression of, I made it a responsible commitment. Actually, I didn't even make the choice. But it's kind of the notion God assigned to me. And I like this because it rails against the independence that's in my head as a North American upbringing, enculturated person. The independence in me is says like, agency. I want to decide, and how about just that most of the key stuff in my life, I had zero choice. God said, this is what it will be. Okay? And at that point, I just worked with it. Think of yourself, rather than kind of like each of us are pushpins separately, think of ourselves like this. I'm part of an existing framework and a network. All right, so my choice, if I at this point decided I don't like these things, I could just, you could decide, any of us could decide tomorrow, I'm going to get in a car, I'm going to drive to Alaska, I'm going to change my name, and I'm going to start over. You can do that. You probably could. Okay? Except you're going to break all those peoples. You can actually see it. You're going to destroy something. Okay? I exist in a network. I'm part of something else. And each one of these connections, I have privileges and blessings in each one of these relationships. Even this can be friendships. I have privileges and blessings in each one of these relationships. I also have moral and ethical responsibilities in those relationships. And a lot of them I didn't choose. Right? So God put me into a family with 3 brothers, 2 parents. God said, you will relate to those people. I can either relate to those people well or poorly. I could rip myself out from it. But I didn't choose any of those connections. God gave me those connections. Okay, so I either handle it well or I don't. And I push that to say then, if I put this into biblical support, this is not biblical support, but it's biblical thinking. The marriage for better or for worse concept. But I can root that in Scripture. How does God deal with Israel and Hosea? It's like a marriage happened, and that person turned out to be an utter and horrible disappointment. She's a prostitute. Okay? And yet God is going to still pursue love, support, and help that person. Okay, so it should help you theologically. If you're working through a difficult marriage, just difficult, stretches across decades. Okay? How about meditating here? It's going to be at least a starting point. It's not going to solve anything, but it's going to be a starting point. Look what God did for me. Look at what a mess I am. And He's loved me, and He's loved me, and He's loved me. So my spouse might be failing, but can I try as best as I can to love that person just a fraction of the way God loved me? Just try a little bit. A fraction of what God did. Isaiah 49:15. Can a woman forget her child? Matthew 7:11. Will a father give his child a stone? It's this concept of natural family love, which is there's a pattern across the New Testament of that. There's a natural family love that says God made us so that instinctively you feel a thing. Okay, but that feeling a thing is bigger than just a feeling. It's actually a connection point where I have obligations. I was born into that, or I'm committed to it now. I made a promise. I have an obligation. Okay, so I will either be a good husband or a poor one. I will either be a good father or a poor one. But it doesn't matter if I ran from it right now. I'm still a husband and a father. I'd just be an absent one. Right? Choose to be a good one. And whatever God made you and wherever He put you, be a good one. Okay, I've got 2 more. And here's another trying to build a foundation for how we think about it. I think a part of the biblical framework for thinking about family would be this, a generational transfer idea. Okay, part of what makes us different as humans, we have knowledge and experience that must be passed on. Okay, so you know, the birds and squirrels and the beavers, they just do the thing. They build the beaver dam. There's not like beavers teaching beavers how to, you know, not, I work this thing out, and there's a better way to do it. It's actually really interesting biology study out the degree to which there is instinct, and the more complex the animal or the more simple the animal is, the more simple it is, the more they'll just run on instinct. Like they don't know what they're doing. So you get these funny things like the bird nest situation where the bird builds a nest, and then the biologist goes and he moves the nest over 1 foot, and the bird comes back there, sits on a branch, can't figure out, like, what do I do now? It's like, I can't find my nest, right? It's all instinct. We're not made like that. We're made reasoning. So when we do stuff, we don't just do it by like feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just do it. We do it by learning and understanding. Okay? And that learning and understanding is enough that generation on generation, or year on year, decade by decade, century by century, it's got to be some transfer. When I was born incapable of taking care of myself, utterly illiterate, a terrible communicator. I had exactly one mode of communication, which was mom, feed me now, I'm angry. Okay? So that's not a way to build a society. And it takes then, and think about the maturing process for humans versus giraffes or beavers. You know, like a deer or something. They'll be like 1 season or 2 seasons max. They're ready to roll. Okay. Humans, it takes us like 18 years to work out most of our stuff. It's a lot of accumulation of knowledge. Okay. How about then a family framework is a framework God gives us for handing off that knowledge, or actually transferring it across. See, but it's richer than that. If I just do that, that's just talking about like creature survival biology. Okay, how about a framework more like this? And I'm looking here at Deuteronomy chapter 6. You could look there with me if you want. Deuteronomy 6, or I'll put it up here. A framework that goes here, core theology. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. These words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Okay, pause there for a second. This is like a fundamental theological statement. Who is God? God is one. How should I relate to him? Love him. How completely? With everything. Okay, so fundamental statement of who is God and how I relate to him. See, but it keeps on, and my response to it actually, my words that I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Okay, so God is like this, how I ought to respond to him, and that ought to be constant. This theological framework right here must become core to you as you think of it yourself as a person. Okay, if I cut off at verse 6, then I could do the independent thing. Because it would just be me and God. Right? I relate to God. God is like this. Here's how I ought to relate to him. Okay, there, we're done. But it goes on. If I'm going to love God with all my heart, soul, mind, strength, and these words are going to be constantly in my heart, then that extends now to how I relate to other people. Thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, when thou risest up. Thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. Thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. And it will be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord as he has commanded us. Up here, if what I'm thinking of is a me, single, I get down here and it's a we. We observe to do all these commandments. How did I get from I to a we? And the answer that came in between was instruction to your children. And it's constant, teaching them diligently, talking up with them when you sit down, when you walk, when you lie down, when you rise up. It's on your doorposts, it's instruction. Okay, so if I said generational transfer, what we got out of that was, yeah, family is really important because it's a key way that we managed to bring hoodlum heathen into being civilized, polite persons. It's like, yeah, I was born as a hoodlum, I was born as a heathen. And across the subsequent years, my parents helped me get under control, helped me speak English, helped me wear clothes. Okay. They got me organized. It's a much better situation. Okay, but the goal of family is bigger than that. It's not just being societally functional. But the goal of family is this, to know God and love Him. Right? And generational transfer then, in a Christian frame, I mean, we could go far, a little ways, with just a secular frame. Okay, you help your children not be heathen, help them be productive citizens. That's nice, that's cute. A Christian framework takes it further. Help your children be eternally redeemed souls. Generational transfer. And if I'm now viewing then family in this framework, this is really enriching. Okay, again, I'll talk about this in maybe more detail tomorrow, just the acknowledgement. We recognize not every family is the ideal. Not every family do you have two living spouses. Right? Spouse may pass away, or a marriage may dissolve. Things happen. Okay? Not every family is ideal. I'm going to talk about the ideal though, and you can, even if your family is not that ideal, you can appreciate, I think, the richness of what God did design. And the design goes, I mean, if you're talking about a man and a woman bringing their divergent perspective, and they have to actually work together and collaborate, which is hard. So they're going to have to like humble themselves and be unselfish, and it's a pain. It's tough. All those differences they're going to have to work on that. They collaborate, humble themselves, and in the process, they're going to have to be more like Jesus to get there and work those things out. And now then, that team is able to work together, inculcating those same sanctification values into a whole group of people that come into the world fully impressionable. And they have a good 18-ish years to just pour into those people. Right? And make it even better. Like, what if, as those people, the impressionable people, are coming through life, they're watching two fallible humans have to collaborate and work with each other. So I mean, I think about this sometimes when my kids are having a conflict. Okay? And they're having trouble like resolving that conflict. My wife and I can be, hopefully, a picture of how two people who have had more practice at it have learned how to work through hard things. It's not natural, it's not easy, but still be able to show them, like, ideally, this is how you collaborate. This is how to work through things. Okay? So you start kind of poking at the marriage and family design, you're like, this is genius. This setup gives ideal opportunity for transfer to impressionable people that can watch two adults who are a little further down the road but still not perfect, with their differences. And it's a process and opportunity to then send them on their way. If I was going to root that in biblical views, how about I can process out the richness of how God, the faithful teacher, the gracious one, my Father, has loved and given me wisdom. God is the source of my wisdom. Okay? And I can't create that wisdom. Like, I didn't come up with any of it. So it's not a generational transfer, but it is this notion that God passes on something that I don't have. I need something, and He grants it to me. How about an idea with this generational transfer idea? It's an idea that parents are affirming that they will not live forever, and there's a cause or concern bigger than me and bigger than having a comfortable existence. The choice to pour into human beings that will exist beyond me and possibly even raise other human beings. That the choice to do that is a radical and very optimistic, bold declaration that we do actually believe there's hope and a future for humanity. Right? It's, you know, like if I just was like, nah, it'll end with me. Like, I mean, this could be a thing. My wife and I could be like, you know what? If we didn't have kids, we can travel about and get what we want and probably have more money to do fun things. That's a fact. It's true. We would have more freedom and we could probably do more fun things. Now, I have so much delight in 4 people that God gave us that I didn't think would actually be more fun. But anyway, we could have processed it out that way. The choice to say, I'm going to look beyond that, is a choice, and maybe this is an encouragement for a parent in the middle of that sacrificial stage. It's a choice for me to exhaust some of my own personal time and resources in another person or in other people when it won't necessarily ever come back to me. Like, you know, if you just imagine, like, you know, when you're raising your kids, like, I'm holding a bunch of $20 bills in my hands, and I'm like, just throwing those out there, okay? Just keep on doing that. Okay? That's all resources, and I could be like, clutch that in. Just throw that out. Why? I'm joyously affirming that there's something bigger than me. And these people can go do something that I can't do. And so I'm just going to invest in them. And I'm okay with it. It goes then to the transfer of me seeking to look beyond myself. And generational transfer that I'm going to see a bigger picture. But my last idea, and I forget who said this. One of you guys gave this. How about rooted, maybe most fundamentally in, when we think about marriage, we think about the family, we think about that whole structure, something about the image of God. Will you guys look with me at Genesis? And somebody, I think we already mentioned that, someone mentioned that as well. But let's go there. Let's just look down Genesis. We'll come back to it again tomorrow. And to some extent, I'm kind of setting up for that, for us to do tomorrow. But I'm going to Genesis chapter 1. If you run down the Genesis, if you run down that whole Genesis narrative, okay, it started out God creates, and day 1 God creates light, and God creates the firmament, and God creates the waters, the seas, and He creates the stars in the heavens, the waters bringing forth life. Now I'm in verse 24. The earth bringing forth living creatures. All of this God saw that it was good. Okay, but verse 26, and if you just paste out the verses, it's like it slows down now. Verse 26, God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, over everything creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him. Male and female created He them. God blessed them. God said unto them, "Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that liveth upon the earth," or that moveth upon the earth. Concept of the image of God here. How about, when we get this language, when you look at the lake, God created man in His own image. In the image of God created him. Male and female created He them. Now, we don't talk about God as gendered, for sure. But the idea right here, God created multiple people. And there's difference. He created male and female, both humans, both equal in dignity and essence, but distinct. And they dwell in community. There's differences here. You recognize where this is going. The Trinity, God, one God, 3 persons, dwelling in community. There's distinction because marriages don't have 3. There's differences here. God is not gendered. But there's at least this little hint in here. A God who creates and acts, and He acts before eternity past, already dwells in communion. Before there was anything, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, dwelling in communion. He creates and He creates communion. And He's a God who is a life giver. Our God creates life. Okay? One of the things that He does when He creates the humans is he tells them, be fruitful and multiply. And so the abundance of human life on the planet tonight is because we, the creatures, are in some way mirroring something of God, the life giver. Right? When he gives life, he didn't just create individuals and then that's it. He creates individuals that are going to make more individuals. And here we all are. So something of God, the life giver, echoed in the people who themselves can be fruitful and multiply and replenish. God, the God who blesses. Why? Because he is a joyful God. And he blesses, and he actually blesses family. I mean, like if I'm working through the details here, male and female, be fruitful and multiply. I mean, this whole framework in here is in the context of family, and sandwiched right between them, God bless. Okay, so I think there's a richness to say something like, when God created family, it's a blessing. It's not bondage. It's not something he sacked us with. It's not something, this is critical. Society did not create, and humans and traditions and cultures did not create marriage. God created it, and it's a blessing. It's a good. So we expect then that though we struggle through our families and our marriages, we expect that there's blessing and goodness and wholeness in it. And this whole subduing the earth and having dominion over it, which is part of his mandate or his creation blessing to them, part of how are the humans going to be able to replenish the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over it? Like over the fish of the sea, like Adam and Eve are just not going to get this done. It's just two of them. Like, Eve, you take the Western Hemisphere, I'll take the Eastern Hemisphere. Let's go. Meet you here next Friday. It can't get done. Okay? But the way that he's made them and their ability now, we got 8 billion of us. And we're not doing a great job of it. But we are subduing the earth and having dominion over it. We're doing all kinds of human stuff. Right? And it is part of family that would only family that would make that possible. If I continue on, he gives conclusion, chapter 1, God saw everything that he had made, behold, it was very good. And we'll go back to that tomorrow. Marriage, family, children, that whole structure is very good. But I do want to shift over into the next chapter, and the next chapter just continues this out a little bit more. You've got this whole recovery that God created the garden. He put man in the garden. And then he says to the man, here's a command, do not eat of the tree. But verse 18, it's not good that the man should be alone. I will make a helpmeet for him. Out of the ground the Lord formed every beast. He brought them to him. Adam gave them names. The Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, verse 21. He made the woman. And Adam said, verse 23, this is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, shall cleave unto his wife. They shall be one flesh. They were both naked, the man and his wife were not ashamed. Foundation of the family. And what I would just say here as an expression of, again, the image of God, an idea that God, our God is a God who made us to dwell in relationship and to delight in it. Like joyful relationship. Again, we're not made to be insular, to be by ourselves, to do our own thing. We're made to dwell with other people. Okay, so I give you an illustration, and I'll link it back to God's nature, and then we'll wrap up the time. How about this an illustration? Like, try a thought experiment. Somebody drops a human spreading bomb on the planet, and all the humans are immediately, magically, just in an instant, we're all spread equidistant from each other on landmass. We don't want anybody in the middle of the ocean. But all the humans are spread out from each other. And I haven't done the math on it, but let's guess maybe it's like 5 miles between you and the next human. Okay, so 5 miles a human, 5 miles later, the next human, 5 miles the next human. And we're spread out, all of us. Okay. So what happens next? Like, what do the humans immediately do? We're all spread out, we're all 5 miles apart. She does like, I mean, what would you do? Like, you wake up, you open your eyes, you look around, you're in the middle of the forest, and you're by yourself. What's the first thing you're going to do?
Shelter.
How are you going to say
First thing I do after I open my eyes, like, hey, Hey, anybody around here? I mean, looking for somebody, right? Hey, yeah, you might work on your shelter, but you know what? You're pretty quickly going to be like, if I'm going to survive this thing, you find the next human, you're like, hey, man, can we work together? Right? I mean, give it a year, and the humans will all put themselves back together, and they'll be dwelling in little towns. They'll be dwelling in little towns because the humans want to be together. Humans are made to be in community. Okay? We're made as relational people, community people. And if I connect that now across to God, image of God, or how that would mirror something. Romans says that we see the creation and we see the complexity of creation, all the things around us, and we can see something about God's power and His Godhead. Right? So I look out and I see stars and I go, wow, He's powerful. I see mountains, I see oceans. Wow, He's big. Okay. I see the details. I see the flowers. I see the little insects. I see the complexity. I say, wow, He's smart. He's wise. Okay? So I can pick up those things. I can do that just fine. I can get then, God is big, God is powerful. Where would I pick up the idea that God is loving? Where would I pick up the way that God feels towards us in relationship? And if I'm looking around for, like I looked at the stars, I got His greatness, I looked at the ocean, I saw His power, I looked at the insect, I saw His wisdom. I could look around the creation forever and never actually come away with a sense of, my God is a loving God. Okay, but I have one image that's there. And if you think of Ephesians 5, in Ephesians 5, Paul says, God created marriage, and He created it, and then He says, so that I'm speaking to you about Christ in the church. Okay, now, I've always heard Ephesians 5 preached as, like in a wedding, so it's great use of it in a wedding, preached as, okay, so man, or male, female, husband, wife, you guys learn to love each other, Christ is your model. Perfect, that's great. It's a great preaching of that passage, completely legitimate. You can actually flip it though. And the idea goes, I look at the people I know, the marriages I know, I look at how I feel about my wife. And if I flip it, I'm actually seeing a tiny little spark or a tiny little shadow, image in a mirror, distant, vaguely, and I'm seeing a little image of what it means that God loves me. So the feelings that you have towards the people you care about the most, they're the weakest little shadow. But what God's saying to you, and He turns around and He says, I love you. And the humans, like you imagine a human goes like, love, huh? I don't know. What is that? No, the humans go, oh, I felt that one. I felt that when my baby was born and I held them the first time. I felt something powerful. Right? I felt that when I was getting to know my wife. And I just, it was exhausting, so I couldn't even sleep at night. Because all I could sit there and just think about the next time I was going to get together and have the next date. Right? I felt that at these powerful moments across the years of our family together. When we had hard things, we came through and we held together and we sat down and we looked back at what just happened and we were amazed at how God helped us through. I felt that, and then God says, I love you. You go, oh, the divine person feels this way towards me. That's crazy. And what if then part of what's going on in marriage, part of what's going on in parent-child relationships, is God building something into the universe itself, into the way we are as humans, the way we behave, the way we feel, as a little expression of how He relates to us. And is that not then going to be enriching for our appreciation and love for Him? All right, so what would that mean? Well, if I put all these four things back up here, I just want to challenge you. The challenge goes, you look at those four things, and there are specific ways that you ought to respond in your family. And you ought to respond as an individual because these things are true. Okay, so I'm just going to run down them. And if I'm talking about generational transfer, what specific steps are you taking to try to inculcate wisdom, biblical wholeness and wisdom in the people that follow you? Or, I'll flip it. You're living at home. You have an opportunity to pick up some wisdom from some really imperfect people, you know this. But some really imperfect people that have been at this for like a couple of decades longer than you. Okay? And I get it because I've lived the teen years, early adult years. And it's kind of like, I just want to figure it out and prove that I can do this. Okay? But to go to them actively and say, hey, Mom, Dad, can you talk to me about this? I need some help. I've got to grow in this area. Can you help me out? Okay, what you're doing is leaning into the generational transfer thing. And it's a good thing. And it's a wholesome and beautiful thing. Lean in. Do a good job with it. Now, how about this? I mean, the idea of within your family, I challenge you. We'll pause in a second, but can you pause for a second and think through, are there specific needs within that I know of within my immediate family or beyond that I could take steps to address? Like there are things that you could do that would make a big difference in a person's life if you would take certain actions. There are specific actions you could do tomorrow that would improve someone else's life. Okay? Will you do that? Because we need each other. We're dependent on one another, working together towards an ultimate end, the glory of God. Okay, committed responsibility. Pausing, and tomorrow I want to talk about the biblical, the scriptural commands for each one of these roles. I think we already know what they are. Are there ways that the commands from God to you about your role as a sister, a brother, a child, a father, a wife, a husband, a cousin, a neighbor? There's specific ways that if you think of that network, here are ways that I ought to be relating to those people. Okay, so maybe I'm doing okay with this one, and that one, and not so great with this one. Okay, what are the responsibilities that those relationships bring? What can you do to do a better job with those things? The last thing I put in here is the image of God, and leaning in on that especially. If my family is a little picture to a world around me, and even to ourselves, like even to us, we know ourselves, we know how we're doing. If that's a little picture of how God relates to us and feels about us as humans, am I showing a good picture or a poor one? Am I presenting something that's compelling or revolting? Or can I show people a picture, hey, and this is part of the richness of it too. We're not perfect, we struggle, and we're sinners. But grace helps.
Yes.
We're making progress. Right? So if you look at the relationships that we've had to work through and the I'm sorry's we've had to say and the things we've had to patch through, there's the taint of grace all around it. That's what you want. You want grace to be all over it. That somebody would walk up to your family and see something miraculous. Right? And by God's grace, let's aim for it. All right, so here's my suggestion for you. Can I give you 2 minutes? And can you pause what we've just worked down through this? Can you write down one idea that you want to take away from this? And then can you write down one action you want to take in response to it? Okay, so you're going to write down one big idea you want to take from our whole time, one action you want to take in response to it. You're not going to share it with anybody. It's just for you. You can write it on your hand. You can write it between your fingers if you're embarrassed. Anyway, but put something, write it on your husband's shoulder. Take one idea that you learned and one action that you want to take as a result. I'm going to give you 2 minutes.